Welcome in to this edition of MISL Weekly. My name's Nicholas Murray, very pleased to be joined by the always enthusiastic Chris Economides. Chris, welcome back.
It's always a pleasure, Nicholas.
Great to see you again. How was your weekend?
Weekend was fine. Some quality MISL games. Fun to watch games, some big games, so let's get right into it.
Well, I think the first one, and maybe the biggest game of the weekend, was the Syracuse Silver Knights and the Missouri Comets. And I was really impressed by Syracuse on Friday night. To come back, take an 11-8 victory after trailing by 6 points at halftime. Very, very impressive win. And kind of a marker for them as far as this season has gone. Comets, we know they're a very good team. For the Silver Knights to take a season sweep over them, very impressive indeed.
Yeah, they had faced off a couple of weeks earlier back in Kansas City, and people had sort of wondered, well, was that like a one-time? It was a huge win there. I think they sort of put to bed any thoughts of it was a fluke win by winning against the Comets again on Friday night. You know what? They're on that threshold right now, Nicholas. They're on the threshold of being able to compete at that elite level. They still need to face the Baltimore and the Milwaukees of the world, but based upon what we've seen so far, looks like Syracuse is for real this year and can compete with any of the top four teams.
That's very true, I think. And the most interesting thing to me about this game was Missouri was actually playing well. Missouri seemed to be in decent control of the game until half-time, and then Syracuse just exploded out of the gate in the second half. Tommy Tanner must have told those guys something, must have picked up on something, because you get the 3-point goal 50 seconds in by Bojelovic, and that was a heck of a strike. You get another goal quickly after that. Suddenly it's 6-5, and all the momentum is moving Syracuse's way. It was a tremendous, tremendous third-quarter effort.
Yeah, no, they came back, and the sign of a good team is to be able to to come back and win in games that you fall behind like that. And Syracuse showed a lot of gumption to come back to actually pick up the win there. A big game. They put them in sole position of third place, and now they've completed their Midwestern swing. So the rest of the season now is basically all a lot of home games, and they're sitting pretty good right now.
There's a big opportunity for them. As you mentioned, they've got a lot of home games coming up down the stretch here. They go on the road this weekend, but we'll get to their game against Baltimore, which is one of the highlights of this weekend's schedule later. Missouri, on the other hand, it seemed like something wasn't quite right with the Comets in both of their games this weekend. Even though they were able to bounce back against the Raw, there's something didn't seem to quite be clicking for them in that performance. And any cause for concern here at all?
Well, they didn't have Leo Gibson in the lineup.
Sure.
Leo's a huge part, huge part of their team. So, that may have a little bit to do with it. They're probably still a very tired team. They just came back the previous weekend from that, from all those games, the 3 games in 5 days, all the travel, some of the travel issues.
Sure.
So that may well have to, play a hand in it. I'll be very curious to see how they respond to their home this weekend against the Milwaukee Wave. I think, if there's remnants of any, negative things going on, we'll see. But that should be a very interesting home and away series.
Well, speaking of the Wave, they looked maybe as impressive as they have all season with that win against the Rochester Lancers on Saturday. They put in some very good performances. The rally against Missouri in the first game of the season, the shutout of Baltimore in Baltimore's home opener. But this was 28 points is their highest offensive output of the year, and this is a team that looks like it's really found its pace as far as especially in attack, with Marcio Leite picking up 5 assists, Nick Perera getting a hat trick, and then you had 4 other guys who scored 2 goals apiece. It was certainly. I'm sure it was really enjoyable for the alumni that were in attendance for their 30th anniversary celebration.
Well, let's not go overboard here. Let's be perfectly honest. It was a depleted Rochester goalkeeping situation there.
True.
With all due respect to 42-year-old rookie Mark Sotilli, Pat Hannigan wasn't there. Gavin McInerney had just broken his foot. So again, it wasn't like they were beating, a world-class keeper. On the other hand, give Milwaukee credit because, again, they played an excellent game. Rochester went in there a little bit, again, banged up a little bit, coming off a horrendous travel week. They were stuck in Chicago all week long, then got into Milwaukee a couple days early because they couldn't get back to Rochester. But again, it's a sign of a quality championship team. You pounce on your opponents. You don't give them any chance to breathe. And the Wave did exactly that.
Well, I got to say, I feel really, really disappointed for Gavin McInerney because I thought he was actually having, despite the issues that Rochester has had this year, he was having a nice season. He was putting together some very good saves, putting together some very good performances. Now, for him to be out, Pat Hannigan to be out, it probably brings the curtain down on the Lancers' playoff chances for this season.
Well, you know what? We still have half a season left. And I've been talking to Sam Fantuzzo. You can't just throw up your hands and say, you know what, that's it. You got to play the games. Anything can happen. Depends on what they do with their goalkeeping situation. Depends on, the health of Mauricio Salas and Doug Miller. Botto's gone in there and helped the situation. On paper, you look at the Lancers and they're a formidable team. Unfortunately, as we said, on the other broadcast, if they didn't have bad luck this year, they wouldn't have any luck at all.
Definitely.
So again, they've had some challenges, obviously travel wise, game wise. Some of the calls haven't gone their way. But through adversity, that's where you see what you're made of, and we'll see how they react to all that.
Now, as you mentioned, we've got a big series coming up this weekend between the Milwaukee Wave and the Missouri Comets. Definitely one to look forward to, and we did just that with Milwaukee Wave forward Nick Perera. That interview will be coming up just after this break. Well, I'm very pleased to be joined now by the Milwaukee Wave's Nick Perera. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Oh, no problem.
First of all, congratulations on the big win this past weekend. I mean, for you guys, it really seemed like everything was clicking offensively. What was it like to be part of that out on the field?
It was this year for sure. When we start to go offensively and things start happening, it's kind of like we're a bit unstoppable right there. When we put up points, we really put up points. So it was great. I mean, and like I said in the interview after the game, we have so many different scores, and we can score from so many different ways. Restarts, power plays, everything. So it's really fun.
Really big performance by Marcio Leite with his 5 assists. What is it that he brings to the team in terms of creativity that allows the rest of you guys to benefit?
Marcio's a freak. When he wants to play, when he's feeling it and he wants to go, he's hands down the best player in the league. He's so creative and he's so explosive on a 1v1. He's so difficult to mark. He can go right and he can go left, and he takes a lot of pressure off others because the other team knows they can't leave him open. So it does create spaces for others.
It seems as though some of the new guys, I mean, you've obviously had Carlos Munoz playing really well for you all season, but it seems like some other guys like JC Banks are starting to get into it and starting to find their rhythm in the team. As you guys are basically at the halfway point of the season right now, is that good to see as you guys kind of move into the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we had this is the year since I've been here. This is my third year, so this is the year with the most rookies on our team. Relative rookies. I mean, Carlos isn't really a rookie, but I think the quality of the players is really high. Tony Walls is a monster in the back. J.C. Banks is great. Jetty McKinney is great. And we've actually got 2 or 3 players that don't even play on the team that are first-year players that are very, very good players too. And obviously, Carlos is putting up points, so it's a lot of fun to play with those guys. It's also really great because, like I said, we can do damage from all angles. It's not just one person that we're relying on every game.
As someone who has been with the Wave for now 3 seasons, is it interesting to see kind of this transition with the new blood coming in after some of the veterans have moved on?
You know, the Wave is always fun. There's always something happening. There's like never a dull moment with the Wave. So it's, you know, when I got here, I was the only rookie. I was playing behind Greg Howes, and I was learning on the go. And now I feel like I'm a little bit of a heavier weight in the locker room, but still, we've still got guys on the team that have been here for, 10, 12 years. So there's definitely a blend of old and new this year, more so than ever. But the quality's still there. That's one thing you always know with the Wave, is that there's going to be, you can have huge turnover, but there's still going to be quality on the field.
Big game, big series this weekend against the Missouri Comets. You head down to the Independence Event Center on Friday night. Then you head back to the U.S. Cellular Arena on Saturday. You guys have split your first 2 games this season. What are you looking forward to most about these 2 games coming up?
I'm excited for home. We played the first 2 games against Missouri were in Missouri. So we played them 6 times this year, and the first 3 will be in Missouri. So they're a very good team. I've always personally thought that they were more dangerous than Baltimore because Baltimore is a fantastic team, but Missouri has always got a question mark. You never really know how well they're going to play on the day. It's hard to expect, Sometimes they can just absolutely floor you, and sometimes they're not feeling it. So there's always kind of a question mark around them, and they're a very tough team to play. And obviously, last time we played them at home, they knocked us out of the playoffs. So I'm excited for Saturday night in front of our home fans to get some revenge.
You mentioned the playoffs last year. Obviously, you guys have played 2 very good games so far this year. Do you guys feel like this is probably the biggest rivalry in the MISL right now?
Baltimore, Milwaukee, that's always a fight. I mean, that's been, since I've been here, that's been the game that, you guys know Coach Tozer. You can tell when he's really feeling the game and he's getting excited about it. And that's the game that gets him going. But if I'm honest, we played Missouri far more times just because of their location. So we played them far more. And I think that I kind of relish playing them more than I do Baltimore. I think that they are our like rivals. That's the team that when we have them on the schedule, you look at it and go, okay, we got Missouri. This is a big game.
Who's the guy on the Comets that you enjoy playing against most as a forward? Who's the defender that's the toughest matchup for you?
It used to be Cristiano. He was there last year and the year before, and he was a tough guy to play against. This year, Gibson used to play in the back too, so he was always a hard one to go against. Brian Harris to me is a kind of a thorn in my side because he's really quick, and I'm not that quick. So, when he gets going, he's really going. So I would say this year would probably have to be Brian Harris.
Is there anything in particular that you guys want to do? Is there any strategy that you guys have put in place for this weekend that you can let us know about, just to try and slow down the Comets, because they are, as you said, a very quick team?
Watching tape and watching the games that they played against us, we know that in the first quarter, they come out guns blazing. It's a team that the first quarter they're on fire, and if they get a big lead on you, they can really kind of coast through the rest of the game. So I think a big key for us is going to be getting through that first quarter. Staying calm, and not getting overexcited if we're up or if we're down. Indoor soccer is a game with a lot of ups and downs, and if you get too excited when you're winning or you get too disheartened when you're losing, it can be a very, very long and tough and arduous game. So I think riding out that first quarter, making sure we're staying to our game plan is going to be big.
Well, Nick, we're really looking forward to seeing both of the games this weekend. Best of luck to you and the Wave, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon, sometime around playoff time.
All right, Nicholas, thanks for having me.
great to talk with Nick. It certainly was very impressive seeing his hat-trick this past weekend against the Lancers, but it'll be interesting to see how he matches up with the Comets' defense. These two teams are probably the biggest rivals in the MISL right now, I would say. And they've split 2 games already this season. We mentioned earlier the Wave rallying back to beat the Comets in the opening game of the season, but when the Comets got their revenge, they got their revenge in impressive fashion. I mean, that was the only loss Milwaukee has had this season, but it was a very impressive performance. You mentioned Leo Gibson being out last weekend. He'll be back from suspension this weekend. What are you expecting to see? What are the biggest keys for these 2 games on Friday and Saturday night?
I think you're right. I think this has probably turned into the most heated rivalry in the league right now. You go back to last year's playoff dramatic series, which was unbelievable. Then you go back to the manner in which Milwaukee came back and won the opening night in Missouri this year, and then obviously the Comets coming back and winning, the next go around. So again, it's turned into a marquee rivalry. And again, as we mentioned earlier on, be curious to see how Missouri comes out after their little bit of a funk with the trip to Syracuse and Pennsylvania last week. But I think it's going to come down to the Comets' offense. Can they get on track? I'm sorry, I'm sort of had to properly think of the right words there, but they've sort of been stagnant in the last couple of games. Obviously, Milwaukee's defense, Tozer has always had a sound defensive team. So will it be the Comets run and gun, as was the first game? But we'll see how the Wave defense handles things.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head before you got to your point, was how will the Comets start? How will they come out of the gate? If they come out of the gate fast on Friday night at the Independence Event Center, going to have a big crowd there, going to have a big atmosphere there. Can they feed off that and get out to the good start that they have in each of the first 2 games against the Waves so far this season? If they can do that, then suddenly things start to move in their direction. If they win that first game, then things move over to US Cellular Arena on Saturday night. They've got all of the momentum, and they've got that carrot hanging in front of them. They could be within a game of the Wave by the end of the weekend.
Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right. I think what happened Saturday in the rematch in Milwaukee may be dictated as to how things transpire on Friday night.
Elsewhere on Friday night, we have the Silver Knights. They visit Rochester, and this is a rivalry too, but this is a rivalry that's been pretty one-sided in recent history. I think it's 8 consecutive wins, maybe 9 consecutive wins for the Silver Knights over the last couple. 8, I think it is, over the last 3 seasons. Can the Lancers kind of re-find their mojo after being on the road for that length of time, or are the Silver Knights going to hold sway over them again?
Well, I sort of, use my remarks very, very carefully. I don't always say must-wins in halfway point of the season, but for the Lancers to have any shot of catching Syracuse or anybody else, this is a must-win.
Yeah.
They have to turn the tables. They have to start beating Syracuse because obviously they're going to be one of the teams that they have to catch to have any shot at the playoffs. It's got to start here.
Yes.
So I'll be curious to see what they do with their goalkeeping situation, and we'll see how they do against Syracuse.
The biggest thing for me is that we are kind of at the halfway point for some teams. For Rochester, they've only got 8 games left. They're already nine down in the loss column. If you can make a case that they might have to win out to get to 11-9 to be a playoff team. And if that's the case, then obviously every game is a must-win from this point on.
Yeah, I mean, but you can't look at it as that from that perspective. You have to take them one game at a time. Of course. And as you mentioned, they haven't beaten Syracuse in 8-9 times, and knowing both organizations, I can tell you that sticks in your craw pretty well.
Yeah.
So, but again, you can't look at it as we haven't beaten Syracuse. It's games that we have to win against the teams that are ahead of us.
Also on Friday night, I think it's maybe an underrated game and maybe a trap game for the Baltimore Blast against the St. Louis Ambush, because St. Louis, they've had the week off, they've recuperated a little bit, so have the Blast as well, but it feels as though this is a team with St. Louis that can play as a spoiler, has played well on the road, and maybe they can get the Blast looking ahead a little bit to their big game on Sunday with Syracuse. Certainly not a team that Danny Kelly will take lightly. I'm just wondering if he's going to be able to convey that to his players.
I'd be curious to see. I mean, Danny's done a great coach over the course of the years. Daryl Duran has impressed me also this year with being able to adjust his game plan after playing certain teams for the first time. You saw that against Milwaukee, where they came out in Milwaukee and were trounced, and they came back, and Milwaukee had to score a late goal to win. You've seen that with Missouri, where their first meeting, the Comets handled them pretty well. This is their first meeting against Baltimore, so I'm not sure, if Daryl already has his game plan in place, and he's not going to have the opportunity to actually turn things around. So I'd be curious to see how things go in there. If I'm Baltimore, I certainly don't take this game lightly.
Certainly. And then we move on to Sunday's game, because for me, obviously Milwaukee, Missouri is huge. But this game between Syracuse and Baltimore, Syracuse can pull even with Baltimore with a win here. I mean, they may have that opportunity. They may have a chance to get into the top 2 seeds, depending on how the rest of the results go this weekend. And this is kind of one of those litmus tests. We saw Syracuse prove it against Missouri. We saw them give Milwaukee a heck of a game, and that return game at the On Center later in the season with the Wave is going to be a must-see. How are they going to fare against the Blast? Are they going to keep proving it game in and game out as we head down the stretch here?
This is an interesting game because Syracuse has already won in Baltimore their first road game in their history 2 years ago. So, but ever since then, it's been a lot of the same. So again, just as certain teams have to prove themselves against the upper echelon, I think this is one of those games. It's going to be a big game. I don't think Baltimore, is going to be looking at that as anything but a game that's, for first or second place. So, with all due respect to Milwaukee. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, but we'll see how Syracuse comes out and handles playing the upper echelon.
The fascinating undercurrent to this game, of course, is Michelle Millwood playing against his former team. He's been great for the Silver Knights all season, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure there's extra motivation there. Will it manifest itself in his performance on Sunday?
Well, I mean, anytime any former player plays against his past team, you know that he always wants to do well. Again, I don't know the circumstances as to why he left there or where but I'm sure that he'll have a special fire lit under him to try and do well against his old team.
We always talk about the individual battles in some of these games, and certainly Mike Lookingland against Mashal Millwood is going to be that's a heavyweight bout.
Well,
it should be tremendous fun for everyone tuning in to watch, not just at the On Center, but tuning in to join us on YouTube on Sunday afternoon.
Well, they've done it many times in practice, obviously, being former teammates. But again, I'm looking forward to that game a lot, just to see how things shake out.
Round out the weekend, we got a Sunday doubleheader with a 4:00 game as the Pennsylvania Roar host the St. Louis Ambush. Now, these guys, somewhat stablemates, both expansion franchises this year, and owned by the same organization, the Missouri Sports Holders. Completely separate organizations, though. So it'll be is this the game for the Roar? Are they going to be able to catch the Ambush, who might be coming off a high after their game against Baltimore? Are they going to be able to catch them out at the Santander Arena?
Well, we'll see what happens. In talking to the GM in Reading, apparently they've got about 5,000 tickets, that they've got out for this game. They're trying to get people, in the market to actually know that the team is there and thriving and trying to grow the sport. So we'll see how many of those people show up. So hopefully we'll have a nice crowd, and hopefully they'll have a nice game to actually try and sell the sport there in Reading. If there's one game that you can point to that Reading, has a real opportunity to win, you would say that this would be the one on the calendar that that they've been pointing to.
It was good to see the additions that they made recently. Kingsley Onwuka, he's a guy who played well for the Baltimore Bohemians in the PDL in the past. Brad Venino is a guy who played well for Reading United in the PDL, and those are obviously two quality organisations in that league. And Onwuka comes in, scores a goal in his first appearance. Maybe we get to see a little bit more out of him in attack against the Ambush on Sunday.
Let's hope so. I mean, again, their performance so far has been,
disappointing.
Disappointing. I'm trying to choose the right word there.
But
Nicholas.
For an expansion franchise, maybe somewhat understandable too.
Yeah, I mean, you can only use that excuse to a certain degree. I mean, they continue to make mistakes that even expansion franchises shouldn't be making. So hopefully that they've gotten some of the negative aspects out of their system, and they can turn things around and start being a little bit more competitive.
Well, that game, as with all of the others this weekend, is, as always, available on YouTube. We'll have links, we'll have live updates on Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus throughout the weekend, and we hope you'll join us for all of the action. Should be some really great games this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Which player are you looking at most this weekend? Which player are you looking to make a difference in his team's fortunes, Chris?
Michelle Millwood. They've got two really big games this weekend. And anytime that they play Rochester, it's going to be a war. And then obviously the big matchup on Sunday against his former teammates. Very, very curious to see how Michelle fares this weekend. And
for my part, I think it's Leo Gibson. I think his return to the Comets lineup is going to be very, very big for them. And the way that he plays, he's been tremendous against Milwaukee in both of their games so far. If he can replicate that in these upcoming two games, then we could see the top of the standings really squeeze up tight with about 7 or 8 games to go in the season.
I think both our choices are excellent choices, Nicholas. You can't go wrong with Michelle Millwood and Leo Gibson.
Certainly maybe two candidates for the All-League team at the end of the season.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway, thank you, Chris, for joining me. Thank you.
As always, a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, producer Seth, for putting all of this together. Thank you, the listeners, for joining us. We do appreciate you guys tuning in and sending us any emails or any suggestions you have. And hopefully you'll join us for all the action this weekend, and we'll see you again this time next week. Until then, bye for now.